Before installing the application, let's make sure that the account that will run the ISG service has the proper privileges on the operating system. On the server that will run ISG, type Local Security Policy. Navigate to the Local Policies, User Rights Assignment. To the right, look for Log On as a Service. We're going to use the local administrator account. Click Add User or Group. Type the name of the user. In this example, the local administrator account is Training. Click Check Names, OK, and then Apply. Step number 2 is to install the RSA surveillance plugin on our Genetec server. Once you go to GTAB and download the application, right-click and run as an administrator, and unzip the files to the C Genetec folder. Now let's navigate to Windows Explorer, C drive, and Genetec folder, plugin RSA, right-click on Setup, and run as an administrator. Select the language, click Next, and Continue. Accept the terms of the license agreement, and verify your installation folder. We're going to select Typical, which means that we're going to install the RSA plugin as well as RabbitMQ server. Let's select a username for the RabbitMQ servers and a password, and click Install. After several minutes, click Finish and restart your system. The third step in the process is to install ISG, or Inter-System Gateway. Once you download the application, right-click on the icon and run as an administrator, and unzip all the files to the C Genetec folder. Now open Windows Explorer and navigate to the C drive, Genetec folder, and ISG. Right-click on Setup and again run as administrator. Select the install language, click Next, and Continue. Accept the terms of the license agreement and verify the install folder. Click Next. Add a check mark to Inter-System Gateway and uncheck RabbitMQ server, as we have already installed the RabbitMQ server on step number 2 while installing the RSA plugin. Put a check mark on Install Mirantis Container Runtime and click Next. Now here, enter the username and password that will be used to connect to the Genetec Inter-System Gateway service. And remember, this is a member, or this account is a member of the administrator group. Now define the port and credentials to establish connection to the Genetec Inter-System Gateway webpage. In this example, we're going to use ISG admin and type in the password. It's important you remember all the usernames and passwords during the installation. Define the Docker certificate credential and click Next. Now install. Now wait for the installation process and restart your server once it's completed. The fourth step is to log into the Inter-System Gateway webpage and configure the Docker engine and the driver container for your tracking system. But before we do that, let's verify that the ISG service is running by going to Services and browsing to Genetec Intersystem Gateway. And in this case, we know it's running. Now let's open a web browser and type HTTPS and the IP address of the server running ISG, followed by 4242. Press enter. Under username, type the username and password that was assigned during the install process. The first thing we're going to do is to navigate to the menu, click on the gear icon, and under Intersystem Gateway Output, RMQ Server, verify that the RMQ server is running and the connection is on a ready status. Now, it's recommended that your ISG server has a connection to the internet so it can connect to the Azure driver registry. If not, you're going to have to configure your server to use a local registry. And I will create another video on that topic. Now let's click Save, and let's create our first Docker engine. Click on Container, add a Docker engine, and let's give it a name and the IP address of the server running ISG, the certificate password. We're using the password assigned during the install process. And now let's go ahead and import the certificate, which can be found under the C drive, program data, Docker, config, certificates, and select your key personal information exchange file. Click Open, Import, and Add. Now that we have our Docker engine, let's go ahead and add a driver container. In this case, using the Magos engine, and click Add. Once created, click on the three dots and start the driver. Now, once the driver is running and is connected, navigate to Communication and type the IP address of the server running the third-party application. In this case, our Magos system is running on server .53. The port to communicate to Magos is 3000. And we're going to add the username and password to connect to our system. The next step will be to go to Config Tool and configure our RSA plugin to connect to the third-party application. Step number 5 will be to create the RSA plugin in Config Tool. Under the Administrator section, select Plugins, add an entity, and select Plugins again. Select the RSA plugin from the list, click Next, and Next once again. Click on Create. After a few seconds, the RSA plugin will be added to your system. The next step is to add the tracking system. So from Config Tool, the plugin task, click Add an entity, select Tracking System. Under Type, select ISG or Intersystem Gateway. Automatically, you will see the third-party application, in this case, Magos Radar. We're going to give it a name and click on the Next button. Next. In some cases, you can import the map from the third-party application. And we're going to click Finish. And after a few seconds, you're going to see that your third-party application and your tracking system has been added. Genetec RSA, or Restricted Security Area plugin, integrates third-party tracking systems to the Security Center ecosystem. The RSA plugin has a built-in feature that automatically tracks a target the moment it enters an ARM RSA zone. You can add a PTC camera and enable auto tracking, and the Security Center system will pan the PTC camera so the target is centered in the camera's field of view. We recommend to take the following steps after adding a PTC camera to your RSA system so it can track targets appropriately. In Config Tool, select the Video tab, select the archiver, then the camera. Double-click on the camera and expand the camera view. Under Coordinates, verify the PTC camera can pan and tilt to absolute values of 0 degrees by clicking on Move Absolute. Using the PTC controls, tilt the camera up and down. An up tilt will show a negative tilt value, and down tilt a positive value. In this example, the camera can only go to a tilt value of 0, which is the horizon, but the down tilt value is negative. To fix this, select the Hardware tab and click on Show Rotation and Directional Offsets. Under Tilt Offset, put a check mark on Invert Rotational Direction. Return to the live view and make sure the down tilt value is now positive. Now open Map Designer and select the map with the PTC camera and the RSA zone. Open the map with the RSA zone and drag the camera that will be used for tracking targets. Make sure that you are using a map that is georeferenced prior to adding the camera. On the Map Designer page, select the camera, then select Show Field View. Set the distance and max distance the camera is able to view. Also set the orientation and, most importantly, the elevation of the camera. Click on Preview Video and make sure to align the camera's orientation on the map with the field of view orientation seen on the live video window. This step is very important so the PTC camera can track targets automatically. Make sure to save the Map Designer configuration prior to exiting the application. Now let's go to set up a local container registry. By default, the IIS Gateway service uses a container registry hosted on Azure. But in some cases, your IIS Gateway server will not have access to the internet, so you must set up the registry on a local drive. The first step is to install IIS Gateway on a server with access to the internet. Now, second, let's set up the IIS Gateway service to use the Genetec production token. So let's open a browser and verify that right now. We're going to type the IP address of the ISG server, followed by port 4242, press enter, and let's type our username and password. Navigate to the gear, and under Docker registry, make sure that Use Genetec Production Token is on. Also, on the menu, we do have a Docker engine configured, and we have our driver configured. Now, before we open the command prompt and copy or create our container image, open Windows Explorer and create a folder on your C drive or any drive that you have available on the server. Now, I created my folder under the C drive called ISG, and that's where I'm going to copy the image. So now I can go ahead and open a command prompt, type CMD, and I'm going to run that as an administrator. The first command that I'm going to run is called Docker PS. It's going to give me information about my image, which I have right over here. Now, since I'm going to copy that image into folder, I'm going to go back to the C drive and change the path to the ISG folder. And now I'm going to copy the following command. Docker space save to -output. And now I'm going to give my image a name. I'm going to call it magos.tar space. Now under image, all this information that I see here, I'm going to copy right after the magos.tar file. Press enter. Now, if I open the Windows Explorer once again and navigate to my ISG folder, I will see that file right in there. Now, the next step is to load the container image. So I'm going to type docker load -input and the name of your image, which is the one that we have up here. Press enter. It's been loaded. And just to verify it's been loaded, I'm going to type now docker images. And there it is. Okay. You're going to have to repeat this process for all the drivers that you have installed. Well, you need to install later on your server prior to moving forward with your installation. Now, once you do that, you can come back to the gear, and now you can check this to use local registry instead and save the information. Thank you.